This is a demo of BP Archiver Plus. Okay, so we have two interactive clients, one on the left here and one on the right. And you'll notice at the bottom here, right here, this one on the left is connect to BP Archives, right? It's a different system. So, well, sort of, but for now, just assume it's different. And then you see on here, BP Prod, okay? So typically in a customer environment, here you would have your day-to-day operations where you manage your production environment. And on the left here, you will, this is the archives system. So if you have a archiver set up, what would happen is the archiver would work in the background, right? It will move data from production to archives. Typically, we want to keep production as slim as possible with data, or you're going to notice bad things happen like your processes, your Blue Prism processes, those sessions, they'll take a lot longer to complete. And in a very bad case, you'll see deadlocks and timeouts. And that's not good, right? So you want to keep your data very slim, specifically the work queue item data. There is a lot of IOs going on with work queue items. Is customer data being loaded, customer data being updated, and then deleted. So there's a lot of operations there. You don't want to keep too much data, or loading data will take a very long time, right? The more data the interactive client has to channel through, the longer it will take. That's why you want to offload completed work queue items over here to the archive system. When you set this up, you say, I want to archive anything older than 7 days that has completed. I want you, Blue Prism Archiver, to move that data over here to the archive system. So over time, the archive system will have a lot of data, and over here, your production data, it'll always be current data only, and that's a good thing. You'll notice when you do your database maintenance, such as rebuilding of indexes, you'll notice that it's a lot quicker when you have less data. So just overall, generally, extremely good idea and healthy to have an archive system that just constantly moves this data out. So now I'm going to show you how it works underneath the hood. So this is the presentation layer, the interactive client. Data is either going to be here or here, but not both. It's going to be in production or archives, but not both. So underneath the hood, I'm going to show you the archives database. So when you install Archiver, it'll walk you through how to set up a database. You'll notice over here, let's assume this is the production database. So if I go to the tables tab, this should start looking familiar to you. It has all the tables that you typically would see when you log into a Blue Prism database. Well, if I flip back over to the archives database right here, and I go to tables, well, there's not a whole lot of tables. What happened? There's only 7 tables here. It starts to look familiar. These are your logging and session tables, and these are your work queue item tables. If I expand this folder here called synonyms, I'm going to just expand that. And if I just go properties right here, you will notice we call this synonym BPA Active Directory Domains. What a synonym is a link. It's a linking object. Underneath the hood, you can name it whatever you want, and you can point it to whatever you want. I say that loosely, right? There's obviously some things you can't. Generally speaking, you can. And what we're going to name this one is BPA Active Directory Domains. He's actually going to the database, the production database, prod. Even though we're in archives there, we're still in archives database, but he's pointing to this object right here, BPA Active Directory Domains. This is a table. This object is a table, and in the production database, so he's linking, this is a link, we gave that link the same name. By doing it this way, I'm going to hit OK here, but let me show you where it's actually pointing. So this is production. That synonym is actually pointing to this guy. So you can do that. You can remotely refer to other objects of other databases. So that's what the synonym does. Internally, here's the beauty of archivers. Okay. Internally, The archives just sees it as an internal table. We kind of tricked it. Really is a table in production. And if you look at this, if I go to design here, if you look at these process here, they are both pointing to the same table, which is the production database table. Even though when I log into the BP archives here, I logged into archives and I log into BP prod, even though I set it up as two different connections to two different databases, they're referencing the same table. By doing so, we're able to utilize everything that production goes on in production. So if you add in a new process in production, you'll see it in archives, for example, because it's the same table, right? That's the beauty of the way archives is set up. It's very easy. It leverages off of existing production tables, such as your users table. So if I change my password over here, when I go over here, I log in with the same credentials, right? Because it's hitting the same tables. So you could have two ICs open in parallel, a controller in a operations room. If they don't find their data in here, if they go to their control room and they go to their queue management and they can't find the data here, well, they could go over here and they can go to queue management and when they do a search for their item right over here, they do a search, then it'll show up in here. If it's not in here, it's in here. That's the beauty of BP archives. The only thing that's different is the actual data that we're moving, nothing else. So you don't have to worry about syncing process on one side and the other, nothing like that. It's we trick the interactive client to utilize production tables when it thinks is its own. By doing so, we're able to have a clean split of the data, either it's in production here or archives. Everything else is the same. When you're a controller, you can just have two of these open. If you can't find it here, just open a connection and find it here. Now that we know that where the data comes from and where it goes, what's actually doing the work? So here in my archives database, here are the tables. If I expand this programmability, like so, you'll notice these three stored procedures right here. That is the process that is actually moving the data from prod to archives. It runs in the background. And typically you would set up a database job to run at certain intervals to move that data. And that's how the data gets populated into archives.